Who am
Isn't that fun?
It is. It is.
Satnam, hello.
Satnam.
I love to come on and hear people laughing. I love this. God bless you all. So, Sandakar and Sadanam, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Welcome. Who else is here?
Guru Atma.
Hi, Guru Atma.
Good morning.
And who else?
Harimander.
Wait a minute. I missed you both. Go ahead.
Ranjit.
Somebody. Huh?
Ranjit.
Oh, Ranjit. Welcome. And who else?
Harimander.
Oh, hi, Harimander. How are you?
Doing all right.
Okay, I keep planning on calling you, and I'm going to call you, okay?
Okay.
And who else is here?
Suzanne.
I beg your pardon?
Suzanne.
Oh, Suzanne.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying Sam. I thought, that's a new name. And who else is here?
Kehar.
Hi, Kehar.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. And who else is here? Oh, somebody else is here. Oh, somebody else. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. So maybe that means it's time for us to get started. Okay, so please sit straight. Welcome on this beautiful, I guess it's beautiful all over the country, this beautiful day of, what is this, January 11th, 2012. We're in 2012. So sit straight, please. Long, deep breath. Good. Eyes at the third eye point. You are breathing from your belly and through your nose, very slow, very deep. Good. Just let that heart open a bit. Eyes at the third eye point. Now inhale. Om. Connecting deeply to protection and guidance. Connect deeply. Long deep breath. And on the exhale, feel as though the air is coming out of your heart center. This is heart breath. Feel as though the air is coming out of your heart center. This is essential healing energy. Allow your heart to open. You heal? Then all of that stuck stuff, all this painful stuff, let it move through. Move through. Now, when you're doing heart breath, sometimes you can immediately feel it feeling, oh, wonderful, happy, resolution, expansion. But sometimes you may also feel it in the beginning, feeling stuck, difficult, hurt, and so on. In healing, when you start moving the healing energy, the difficulties, the stuckness, the hurt comes out and you actually feel it. So don't get upset if that happens. And especially in your sadhana, say, wow, this is great. It's actually coming out. So keep up. And then you'll see it will transform. Good. And now, please send this very beautiful golden heart breath to everybody who is in our class or who will be listening to this recording. Keep it up. Send healing energy, the most kind, generous love there ever could be, to this whole group. So at this point, you were both giving and receiving. You were connecting deeply. That's it. Keep opening. And now, please send this beautiful healing breath to everybody who is going through changes right now. And that's about everybody, let me tell you. It seems as though everybody is getting so much more sensitive, that the old stuff is clearing out. It's when a child is growing. For instance, through the terrible twos, you think, oh, goodness, we're over that now. And then suddenly, before they go on to the next, at 3, they suddenly have a bout of terrible twos again. So just before you move into the next stage, you may find some clearing. We'll call it clearing, so don't get upset if it comes up. Just say, oh, we are still growing in this area. This is fine. Keep up the breath. Welcome the healing. And welcome the new sensitivity. Welcome the new sensitivity. In the beginning, it could feel as though you were so much more tender. Remember, we talked about that little crab shedding its shell? Well, we're in that shedding its shell part, where we're more tender, more vulnerable. So just keep up the heart breath. And the new shell is not something to ward off, but something where we can, it's a layer where we are stable and we can connect so much better. Good. Now keep up your heart breath. Baba Siri Chand is here. Oh my gosh. He's just kind of dancing and jumping all around. You might think it's May with a maypole. He's just, well, sometimes I call him an imp, and he'll say, "Don't call me an imp." But he is. He's being, he's funny, and he's joyful, and he's a trickster, and he's playing, he's sort of sneaking up and giving kisses is what he's doing. So if you find him sneaking up and giving you a kiss, quickly give him a kiss back, okay? Now he's saying that there is someone on this line who has a very heart-centered question, and he wants you to ask it. So whoever's being prompted, ask the question. And don't be shy. Who would like to ask the question?
I think I have the questions here again.
Oh, good. Who is this?
Suzanne?
Yes, dear.
I was speaking with someone yesterday about all of what we talk about. And the bottom line, he said, well, that's so very optimistic of you to think that there will be a good end to, that the good comes out. That this is who humans are. This is as good as it gets. This is a continuous, if you just keep looking back in history, we constantly destroy ourselves. His argument was so convincing, it upset me. I mean, I couldn't even argue back. There was no argument. And I thought, wow, I wonder if he's right. It made me hesitate.
Hey, what a wonderful question. Excuse me, that's kind of scary. Yes, I agree. Okay, Baba Siri Chand. Excuse me a minute. Okay, he says, oh, that's good. He says, we're on now. He says the conductor is here and the engineer is blowing the whistle, and here we go. Okay, keep up heart breath. Keep up heart breath. He says, if you view history as only destroying yourselves, as only the dark, he says there's no place to go but down. He says that it is true over time. He says humanity has discovered more incredible, he calls it implacable, ways of destroying each other. He says, haven't you done entirely wonderful in that category? Look at the bombs, look at the poison. He says there are electronic bombs and so on. He says you all have done marvelous in that category. He says this is all the Piscean root. He says, but also look at it from the other side. He said, are you still put to death if you try to follow soul? Are witches still being burned? At least in this western part of the world. Have you come to a consciousness? Are you able to come to a consciousness in which love is at the forefront? He says, these were not available in the past. People tried, excuse me, but he says, but huge roadblocks were put in the way. He says you were subject to tortures. He says at the best behest of the power organization, whoever took over the power would employ these things over others in order to curtail the power of the population, to curtail the power of the kindness of heart, of listening to soul, of living from spontaneity. He says, Look at Martin Luther. He says he knew to listen to soul. He said that was one of his very important theses, I guess you'd call it, in that a person has direct connection to the God. Okay? That the church is not in charge, but that the God within is in charge. He says, and then you had centuries of witch burning and all that stuff. He says you got to pay off plenty of karma. He says you have to think of the world as a progression of karma for the soul, which gathers this wisdom, which plays the game of spirit, he says, in this world. He says we've gotten to a place now where we have freedom of spirit, generally speaking. Okay, not everywhere, but in general, we call this a human right. He says, now, let us breathe and be grateful for this. Be grateful for this freedom. Be grateful for this acknowledged right. He says, please feel that. Isn't that the most incredible thing ever? Good. Okay, now he says, in the coming times, he says, yes, there is a will, a force, between what we would call the power grabbers. He's not calling that darkness. He's just calling it the power grabbers. And the people who are upset, the people, he's just calling them people who don't communicate with their souls. I want to take an aside here and point out that he's not judging. He's not saying these are bad or anything. He says, but they are part of the play. Okay? Remember, he always talked about the former president as to send him heart breath and not hatred or anger. Do you remember that? Okay. So that he calls it, inculcate this quality and the essence of love within him and not the quality of destruction. Now, you keep up your own heart breath, okay? He says, now where you were going, he says, yes, there will be a tremendous amount of turmoil. And people who are engaged in the idea of destruction will carry out destruction. And people who are aware of the light and so on, they may be affected as well. But everybody at their soul level is playing their own part. Be very aware that everybody is playing their own part as their soul has determined it. Remember, Yogi Bhajan always said we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spirit having a human experience. That's what it's all about. So he says in this transition, it is very, very important that we relate to souls. If we only relate to, he calls it the humanity of the body and the mind, he says you could easily go under. In other words, your mind could get deranged. Yogi Bhajan says people will be going crazy. If you relate to that level, it will be too much for you. Or it may be too much for you. Do you understand? Because we are, he calls it conjoined by a set of rules, overt and covert, that is called our culture. It is our habit of doing things, relating to one another, creating our living, even loving one another. He says, my dears, that will fall apart. That will fall apart. So, he says it will fall apart so that the new may arise. What he's showing me is that here in New Mexico, after the fall crop is over, sometime during the winter, there's stubble left in the fields. The farmer comes along and he burns off all the stubble. Okay, whether you agree with this thing or not. But it does release certain nutrients into the soil. And then in the spring, then there is a new release of life. So what is coming about is the new seed of life. He says that's what we're doing in these little in these little gatherings that we are doing. Do you understand? We are examining, developing, culturing those new seeds of life that will come up that are not dependent on the old culture. He says this is the reason it is so very important for us to be absolutely rooted in soul, rooted in intuition, rooted into our spiritual practices as the tools that put us there. He says, I cannot stress that enough. I cannot stress that enough. If you think that you can get by with maybe 60% in soul and 40%, harboring the old ways of feeling or doing things, going about things, okay, for instance, I have this much money stored, or I have this much fuel stored. He says he's not knocking those things. He says those are a good idea. He says, but if you were betting your entire security on that, he says, you will not be secure. The only security is to jump right into your soul, to be totally present in your soul, to be fully present in your soul into the reality of who you are. That is how you shed the old cultural ways, the Piscean cultural ways that keep us, that as we go through the transition, will be knocked down. He says there's no need for you to be knocked down with those cultural mores. Do you see? He says, for instance, what if the monetary system blows apart? He said, you've already seen some results of what happens then. He says, you saw it with a truckers' strike. You saw it with the banking crisis, as they called it. You've seen it in Europe. He says, what if that happened? What would happen? At that point, my dears, he says, at that point, it is time to be very aware that fear can take you over, can take over your nervous system, can take over your mind, and throw you right into the dirt. He says, but there's no reason. He says, you know better. He says, you know heart breath, you know your japji, you know your kundalini yoga and meditation, and you know the discipline of mind to stay grounded. In other words, to send your energy right down into the center of Mother Earth. He says she is waiting there to cradle you, to comfort you, and to stabilize you. Do you understand? Do that now. Send your energy right down into the center of Mother so that you may be stabilized. Keep up your heart breath. He says, and then this is the time to go beyond your separateness, your wiliness, your judgments. Oh, he hurt me, so I'm not going to give him any food. Oh, they're just money mongers, and I'm not going to even give them a glance. He says, at this time, he says it will be different in different areas, sort of like microclimates. He says, well, Yogi Bhajan says that, not everyone is going to survive. Not everybody's body is going to survive. Everybody survives in soul, of course. Everybody flourishes in soul. So it is asking us to go right to the point of understanding that we are unlimited souls, undying souls, in staying in that no matter what the circumstances are. He says, please do that now. Breathe your heart breath and go deeply, deeply into that feeling, into that knowing, into that space. Relax into the space of soul. Feel the brilliance of soul. feel the calmness and the kindness. He says, now, when you're in that space, do you feel fear? He says, the discipline has to do with moving into that space and staying there. That is the absolute total discipline. That is when your heart can open, your heart can flourish, and your heart can join, connect, flow with all others. He says you may think this action makes you vulnerable. He says, my dears, in fact, when you are in this position, soul knows all the moves, knows when to allow you to go forward, when to allow you to sidestep, when to create a protective boundary. Your soul knows much better than you do. And it is all based in consciousness, and it is all based in love. Do you understand? Now, the outcome or the outpouring of this, as the difficulties increase, as the possibility that populations diminish, then humanity begins to understand what they've done to themselves. And that is the time when finally we can have the full swing back to saying, oh my God, this is not going to do. This is not going to do. Our structure, our money structure, our way of dealing with people is throwing us in the pits. Okay? That means both capitalism and socialism have outlived their stay. Okay? The only thing that is left is a connection of heart. Connection of heart and total intuition that is flowing from the intelligence of soul in the very second. That is the only thing that is left. Now, Suzanne, your friend was very astute in what he was saying, because there is a destructiveness to this, but you have to understand that, there is a quality of we use the letters of GOD as initials for generating, organizing, destroying. The D, the destroying, is governed, we'll say, by Shiva. And guess who Baba Siri Chand is? He is a manifestation or an avatar of Shiva. That's what Yogi Bhajan told us, okay? So he's saying, do not be afraid of me. Do not be afraid of my change. You have seen the great love. He says the destroying or the moving out of the old, the breaking through the shell of the old environments is pivotal so that hearts can bloom, so that hearts can enjoy one another, so that they can join, so that they can feel the full capacity of kindness, of love, and full appreciation that whoever is around is here. Oh my God, such gratitude that people that you may never have even thought of relating to before, oh my God, they are human, they are here, let us unite. This is where we're going with this Aquarian dimension. As we've talked about before, the Aquarian age is not just, how can I say, a switch in years. He's saying that with the Mayan calendar, he says the world, people interpret it as the world comes to an end this year. He says, but in fact, what the Mayan calendar was talking about was this vibrational frequency or matrix of the Piscean in which the creation exists, in which the consciousness, the intelligence, the emotions of humanity exist. He says, you are much bigger than you could ever imagine. He says, what we're going into with the Aquarian is a different vibrational frequency or matrix. This is the reason we are the pioneers. Later on, when children are born into this, they will look back at this time and say, oh my God, how barbaric. How could that possibly be? We say the same thing about past wars, right? How barbaric. Okay, so we are moving into a time when they're finally at rest. There will be no option but to kindly grow with one another, to share the consciousness. It is a vibrational frequency matrix that, as you experience it now, is giving you, is creating, it is making you much more sensitive, as we talked about at the beginning. It is making you more aware. It is speeding things up. You may find that you're going faster and faster. He said it is a whole new time and arena matrix. It is one of connection, one of kindness, one of power from the heart, one of power from the consciousness, one of living in the divine. Whether you call it the divine or not is immaterial, but living within that feeling which is produced from soul, which sustains you, which guides you. He says, please be in that now. Please be in that now. Use your heart breath and expand. Expand. It is a planetary shift. He says that the scientists don't understand the cosmos well enough to understand this now. So that when you talk to people, they will say, they will just get the heebie-jeebies, and they will say, oh, that's not scientific. He says, just realize a few hundred years ago, Galileo, who had just a telescope, for God's sake, just a telescope, he was branded a heretic. He was in danger of prison and being put to death just because he had a telescope. Oh, my God. Do you understand? Science is doing its best to keep up and to understand this, but it just hasn't gotten there yet. It's beginning, but it is not touted yet because those who understand these principles on the scientific order still are branded as heretics. It's just what happens. Just what happens. So now please stay in the total vibrational experiential mode of truth. The total experience of truth, which is being, he calls it being in the lap of your soul. Be that now. Being in the lap of your soul, which is your true self. All the other confusion, the other difficulty, the non-understanding, he says this is the time to transform that. He says, people talk about resurrection. He says, this is the resurrection. He says, to arise to your own soul. When you are in this place, and you can do it very simply, moving over into the soul. He says, when you are into this place, soul, fear does not grip you. Truth supports you. It is very important that you stay in this place day and night. Make a true training. Train yourself. Train yourself. Just as you would be going to a dojo to learn a martial art, just as you would be going to a trainer or weightlifter, train yourself. Train yourself to be who you are. This is why you are the pioneers. This is why you are the light workers. Do you understand? It is for each one of you to hold that space. so that others can vibrate with it, so they can see it, they can understand it. They may connect with you. They may hook up with your space, whether you ever see them in body or not. But let the courage come through you, and the courage is simply to stay within that place of connectedness, that place of vibrational frequency that is your soul, that is the God Self, that is the universal consciousness, projecting as you in the most cozy, unified, precious way. This is where your strength comes from. It comes from relaxing into this presence of who you are. He says, now please vibrate this consciousness, as you, as a light worker, unite with all light workers around the globe, whether they put it into these exact words or not. These are all peoples, because of millions of consciousness. This is the safety net for the world. This is the evolutionary, he calls it evolutionary sanctum for the world. This is the safety net for this earth. Please use your heart breath and connect with every light worker on the planet. Do that now. And do you see how we support one another? Do you see how we support one another? In our matrix, in our web, we are no longer separate. If we have an illusion of separateness, understand it is an illusion. If you encounter separateness in your daily life, anybody who's not accepting, whatever, simply be very kind and gentle and connect. Connect with them. Do not require that they connect back. But if they are open to feeling the love and the connection, the peace, the calm, allow them to. Remember, it is the healing for both of you. It is the healing of the planet. Even if two people are healing together, it still totally vibrates on this web of consciousness so that all of us feel it. Keep up the breath. Have a confidence in this web of light workers. He says, and realize that you will be hearing. He wants you, first of all, to stay in soul. This is very important now, to stay in soul. He says, you may be hearing the terrors of the world to come. He says, give them up. He says, give them up to the Father, Mother Almighty. And allow yourself to connect in love. Connect in love. Now, the resolution may not happen in what we would like to see in Pythian terms. He says, but understand that the resolution, the change, the transformation is happening on a very, very huge level. On a very huge level. And that the souls, every soul has scribed out their part. Every soul has scribed out their part. Okay? So have gratitude at every instance. Gratitude at every instance for connecting and for every soul doing its part as we transform Understand this is your destiny. You as your soul have chosen this. Expand to all light workers so that we become one full, fibrous network of light. Not thin and straggly, but robust, flowing, alive, totally communicating. And our support, our love, our connection with one another, and all who will come to join. This is your presence. And now he's actually bowing to every one of you. He's bowing for your consciousness, for your commitment, for your determination, and for your humility. Your humility in allowing yourself to be, he's calling it, to be the homespun of this enormous project of the earth. Breathe. Settle yourself in this. Settle yourself. Know who you are. And love yourself. Take time to dance today. Take time to sing. To do some creative thing that gives you joy. To hug your children and your loved ones. Love, love, love. Free yourself. And inhale and exhale. And being present, still in that state. Remember, you're going to continue being in that state. And now we're going to ask for sharing. And he says to start with Suzanne. Suzanne, what did you understand?
Well, once again, it's hopeful because this gentleman said, so pacifists will just have to die gracefully. And I didn't think it's, and I don't think it's all about death and destruction.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get past that conversation into hope and joy or beauty. And so it's reassuring to hear that.
Right, and it takes a matter of mind discipline to stay in that place.
Yeah.
It's not Pollyanna. It's really rooting yourself.
People will say that to me, and it's not Pollyanna, but it is a belief. Human spirit is a godly spirit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yogi Bhajan said in the Piscean, we first believed and then we experienced. Okay? In the Aquarian, we first experience and then we believe. Okay? So if you're having a conversation with someone about this, you can say, let me help you get an experience of this Aquarian dimension. Okay? And you've been on enough of these calls that you know how to put someone in there if they are willing.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
You'll do that, right?
Yes, more. Like, the conversations are much more open now. It's more common. Truly a reality. And it's surprising. You go back and go, wow, that's pretty cool. That it is continuing. It makes you, it's become a more common thing to, how do you get to that state? How do you share that?
Right. And it's simple. Right?
Simple.
You do heart breath and relax into soul. It's so simple. And that's one of the big problems. It's too simple. The discipline is remaining in that. Use a mantra. Use a mantra, and it'll cut through the ropes that want to tie you down to the Piscean or to the fears.
I see. Yes.
Gobindi Mukundi is my favorite for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Now, who else can share their experience?
Siri Gian?
Yes. Rahmani?
This is Rahmani. I wonder if we can know the name of Suzanne's friend, and I'll send him heart breath.
Oh, what a good idea. Suzanne?
That is a good idea. And I'll say he would even call himself a pacifist. So he is a gentle soul that his, I don't feel like he's an affronting, negative person. I don't think he's negative. Maybe he's a cynic. His name is Steve. He is a wonderful person. And he would say he would be a cynic. He's just seen too much. But thank you, Rahmani. I think we should send him heart breath.
Yes, and I just want to say that in India, when the Mughals were trying to kill everybody who wouldn't convert, the Hindus were pacifists. That was part of their religion. And the Sikhs respected that, and the Sikhs were the warriors who protected others. But it doesn't mean that we go out and fight. The discipline, the spirit is to be in soul, and soul will guide you how to go through it, okay? To stand and you may need to fight, okay? But it is not done in anger. That's the difference. It's not done in anger. Remember, Guru Gobind Singh's arrows were tipped in gold so that the families of the people that he killed would have enough to bury the person. You understand the profound depth of that?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do heart breath for Steve. Good. Can you feel there's a little difference in him? Can you feel that now? So just keep up your heart breath and include Steve. Good. Thank you, Rahmani. And thank you, everybody. Now, anybody else? Can anybody else share?
Siri Gian, I have another sharing I'd like to offer. Rahmani again.
Sure.
In the Hebrew tradition, which is probably the tradition of most of our ancestors, the word yirah, Y-I-R-A-H, is translated both as awe and fear. And last night I was reading about it because I have a lot of fear too, and I think it's fascinating that the exact same word is used hundreds of times in the Hebrew Scriptures. And so the rabbis have spent years, decades, lifetimes, trying to ascertain when each time in the Scripture the emphasis is more towards awe and when it's more towards fear, and how to use fear. Obviously, it's not the kind of fear that cripples us and shuts down our creativity and contracts us and sends us down further into the pit, but rather the kind of awakeness of, well, if we keep acting stupid, then we create more pain for ourselves and for each other and destruction for the planet. So it's the kind of fear that hopefully wakes us up and gets us to log on to the discipline of the mind, which then allows us to re-enter the heart realm and the soul realm. So not to reject the idea of so-called fear of God, but to understand it in terms of, karmic feedback loop is is up for us to see, and then also growing in our sense of awe of how is it that in the midst of all this destruction, there are so many of us that are finding our way into realms that allow us to feel unprecedented connectedness and opening up more and more to the miraculous nature of spirit that works through us as us individually and collectively. And then we get to say Waheguru or Hallelujah or Alhamdulillah or whatever the flavor is. And I think there's what I'm feeling about Steve is he has places where he understands awe, perhaps in nature, and that's a wonderful window to connect with the greater creativity, which then at least gives us a good way to balance the fear that comes up to be processed.
To be who we are.
Yes.
Good. Thank you so much, dear. And do you know there's a word in the Sikh scriptures that is the same. It can be interpreted either as fear or as awe. And usually, I'm sorry to say, it's often interpreted as the fear of God. But I hang very much to what you're saying. Thank you so much, dear.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Now, who else can share? Did anybody have any experience of understanding? Who is this?
Hi. Sadhana? Yes.
Yes, dear.
Well, I've been thinking about someone that was named Etienne, which is French for Steve.
How about that?
And I was like, what is that? And then I was like, oh, that means Steve. I wonder who that is. And that has been for a few days. So I love that.
Yeah. Yes, that's wonderful. But during the talk, did you hear that that we would be, Baba Siri Chand said that we will be hearing from, how can I say, I don't want to say others, but hearing from the ones on the web, okay? So here you are.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Love
Thank
that.
you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Hello.
And so it's important for us to be responsive and not dismissive, but to honor that. Thank you, dear.
Yes.
Now, who else can share?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Wendy. My name is
Say it
Wendy.
again? Oh, Wendy. Hi,
yes,
Wendy.
hi there. How are you?
Good. You?
When I think of this example of Steve, I think Steve is just an example of what has been and not what is, and he's just a representation of some of the collective consciousness. And I don't think so much that what's happening is destruction. I just think it's the dissolution of that which no longer serves us. And that because we have moved into an age and a time where the veil is really thin and we can connect with those on the other side and we can connect with the ascended masters, we're all getting the opportunity. And I think of the Chinese sign, that one sign that is crisis and opportunity, similarly to what you both mentioned about the dual meaning of a word. And I feel that this time is such a rich, potent time to really stay in love, the truth that which is our true nature, and that we are going to see people that aren't necessarily on the same page, and to be able to have compassion for ourselves when we're caught up in the duality, and compassion for others that don't have it, because like you said, Siri Gian, we can't meet them with anger because that's the same vibration. We've got to raise them up.
That's right.
So I really resonated with all that you spoke this morning and what came through you, because that is the truth. Love is really what it's all about. Not the hallmark love, but the non-dual quality of love.
Oh, right. You mean not the Hallmark card sentimentality?
Exactly.
Of love.
Exactly. Although, we all as human, as spiritual beings having a human experience, we experience that personal love. But there's also the love that doesn't waver and isn't conditional.
Right. It is a state. It is a state of being, an expansive state of wonderful, dear. So well said.
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Blessings.
Well, yes, blessings to you. Well, I think it's been so beautiful being with you and so genuine. I love being with you all. Baba Siri Chand is hugging everybody. He said if we were together, we would hold hands and get up and dance. He says, find a way to dance and enjoy and love yourselves and love each other.
Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to have our closing song. And Kehar, would you lead us?
Yes.
And sing this so beautifully to each other and receive it yourself.
Inhale. May the long time sun shine upon you, all love around you, and the pure light within you guide your way on, guide your way on. Guide your way on. Inhale. Sa. He says, enjoy the bliss of who you are. He says it does not deny the darkness, but it loves all with equilibrium and kindness and steadiness. Love you all. Talk to you soon. Sat Nam. Bye-bye. Sat Nam.